shit, if there were any cameras following my life around, it'd be pretty fucked up, but I think it'd be a pretty good documentary. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Top 5 Saturdays Live with me, Chase Lee, one of your co-hosts, and the other co-host being Brian Sudfield. On this week's episode, we will take a look at some of our favorite documentaries. What are some of the stories out there, the real-life stories that have captured our hearts and just made us swoon for that movie? Well, that was a weird phrase, but what will we pick and put on our list? We're going to have to sit down, relax, and find out. What is up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Top 5 Saturdays Live with me, Chase Lee, my co-host,
Brian Sudfield.
That's fucking right. Hey, listen, guys, if you're new to the show, welcome. What we usually do.
Brian Sudfield.
Thank you, Brian. What we usually do is we take a look at some of the movies coming out on Friday, and we will pick one, and we will honor the actor, actress, director, genre, what have you. We'll just randomly pick something, and we will honor it and give you guys a top 5 list and kind of surround that. Just put it on a pedestal and fucking just raise it up and just make it shine. We're going to support that subject. So the cool thing about the show is that it's live, so we have no idea what the hell's going to come out of our mouths, and we don't know each other's list. So before we get into the subject, Brian, how are we doing this week?
I'm good. How are you this week?
Pretty good. I was supposed to go on a date actually tonight, and then I realized that, and this is a while back. I wasn't like emotionally stable yet to jump back into a relationship, and so I had to call it off. I had to be a proper person about it and not be a dick. So that's my advice to you guys out there. I should start a relationship podcast. Listen, when you guys break up with someone, it's gonna sting, it's gonna hurt, and you might need some time to kind of like step away from it. Go do something, take your mind off of it, but jump back into a relationship when you're ready, because it's not fair to the other person and it's not fair to yourself. So just keep that in mind. Do not be a dick. There's your PSA for the day. So but other than that, I'm doing pretty well. I saw The Big Sick last night. Definitely great medicine after a breakup, that's for sure. Because that movie is filled with so much hope. So it's been an interesting couple days. So other than that, I'm doing pretty good. So nothing else in your life? That's it?
I mean, I'm having a good few I've been having a few good weeks lately. It's been quite great for me, and I'm happy. I'm doing so well, and I'm grateful. I'm just very happy to be alive. I know that I don't want to get too personal, but it's so great. I've been happier now than I've ever been in a long time, so I'm so happy.
Brian, I tell this to Joel on the Sunday podcast, and I'll tell you, but, if we don't have to get, like, super, like, social security number reveal personal, but, like, you gotta be a little personal with our audience. Like, they string along with us on this crazy-ass ride. The least you can do is just let them, how you doing? That's all I want to know is just, how's the Beat Suds doing? They just want to know a little bit. They just want to know a little bit about you. Because they want to know that you're sound for this podcast. Because what if something happened and you were in like a dickish mood or something? I'd be like, well, fuck, you gotta explain to them what's going on. Like, or, they're gonna think that you're yelling at them or something. So, whatever. But anyways, it sounds like we're both doing well. Another week in the summer in the dead heat, but that's okay. Brian, what are we doing this week?
This week an Inconvenient sequel comes out, which is a sequel to a film called An Inconvenient Truth, which is a documentary. And on this week's episode, we are going to be doing our top 5 documentaries.
Oh, fucking time. Listen, if I had to pick my top 3 favorite genres, I'd probably have to go comedy, horror, documentary. I love documentaries that much. And when I was going down like the documentaries I've seen all throughout my life, I realized that I've seen a shit ton. Documentaries have been around for quite some time, but I wouldn't really say they kind of really blew up in the mainstream until like the 90s. And, regardless of what you think of his films, that loud buzzing is my dryer that you just heard. but yeah, the kind of like mainstream documentarian to kind of bring it over into the forefront and make people more aware of it, regardless of what you think of his views, is Michael Moore. When he brought in like Fahrenheit 9/11 and Bowling for Columbine and stuff. I know that like documentaries have they've been in the public eye for a while, but he's the one that kind of like brought them into like this mainstream light. And so from that point on, I would believe is when we had, kind of like more documentaries come out. And I would say over the past like 5 years, they've been fucking excellent. I don't know what has happened. I don't know what the shift is, but like most of mine are like fairly new because they're just so powerful nowadays that if you do it correctly, man, you can win anyone over. But I've been a fan of documentaries for a very, very, very long time. The very first one I remember ever seeing and loving is actually on my list. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. Documentaries are one of my favorite genres because they're real life stories, and the real life stories are the ones that can be the most compelling if they're done right. So I'm excited to do this list and bring you guys a little bit of insight into what my tastes are. So, Brian, what do you think about documentaries? Is it is this something you look forward to? Is this something you kind of dread? What's going on in the head of yours?
See, I don't dislike documentaries, but I'm not like a huge follower of them. I don't mind watching them every once in a while. It's just that I'm not like a huge supporter of them. And believe me, whenever I do watch a documentary, I'm blown away. I'm like floored. And the 5 ones that I picked, I admire tremendously. And I'll be biased here. Most of them are kind of related to filmmaking, so I may be biased with that. There are a few that aren't related specifically to filmmaking, but most of them are. And I like most of them. It never really depends on the subject. Sometimes it does, but sometimes I would watch a documentary that focuses on something that I didn't think I would care about, and then I'm like, wow, that was really interesting, because I like to hear perspectives from different people, their opinions on what it is that's being talked about in said documentary. And yeah, I do like them, but I wouldn't say that I'm a huge fan of them like yourself. I think this is going to be the first time in forever, Frozen reference, where Chase, this is more of his episode than my episode. So yeah, this should be interesting for sure.
Yeah, I mean, in my many like press screenings that I receive throughout the year, some of them are documentaries, and I gotta say that those are actually some of my favorite movies of the year. Like, one of my picks on my list was one of my favorite films of 2015, 2016. I forgot. I think it was 2015. But like if they're well done, like I said, they could be actually more compelling than like most mainstream movies. So yeah, I'm excited to jump into this. Let's not waste any more time. Because yeah, not only do I have my 5, but I have a shit ton of honorable mentions. I only have one dishonorable mention, and I can't wait to get political and piss all you people off, because Brian knows which one I'm going to talk about. All right. So
yes.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So, without any further ado, let's break down our top 5 favorite documentaries so far. So, Brian, I have to ask you, what is your number 5 favorite documentary of all time so far?
My number 5 is a film-related documentary. I'm going with one that follows a film that I am a fan of, certainly, but I'm not like in love with it. However, when I was watching this and learning about the making of it and all the craziness that ensued on set, I had to put Heart of Darkness on here. Now, for people who don't know what Heart of Darkness is, Hearts of Darkness, excuse me, this is the documentary about the making of the infamous Apocalypse Now, which was a Vietnam War feature film directed by the brilliant Francis Ford Coppola from the 70s. And it's interesting because when I saw the movie for the first time, I was like, this is really good. I like the movie. And when I found out there was a documentary about it, I was like, oh shit, I want to know how they made this and everything. There was a lot of drama that went on set during this movie. It's insane. There's a lot of cool behind the scenes footage. The documentary is narrated by Eleanor Coppola, who's the wife of Francis. And because this film put a lot of pressure on everybody, and when you're making a film and a lot of pressure is put on you, it's mainly on the filmmaker. And Francis Ford Coppola, obviously at this time he was already a certified filmmaker because he'd done the first 2 Godfather films, he'd done The Conversation. The guy was already an Oscar winner. He was a big deal. And There were a lot of delays in the movie. There were high cost values. The bad weather, the health. I didn't know this until I saw this documentary. Martin Sheen went crazy on the set. It led to him having a heart attack, like a severe heart attack. So that's insane when stuff like that happens. And Marlon Brando being typical Marlon Brando, doing crazy wacko shit. But it's really interesting. Regardless of what you think of Apocalypse Now, it's a really kind of heartbreaking documentary because this Francis Ford Coppola wanted to bring this to the screen, and while he was making it didn't entirely go super well. But the movie ended up being great, of course. It ended up getting a lot of Oscar nominations, a lot of acclaim. It's still considered one of the best war movies ever made, and I just think it's a very interesting documentary. If you're a filmmaker, it's actually one you kind of have to check out because watching this, you could see the pain and pressure that is put into making a film. And all the stuff that was going on when they were making Apocalypse Now, it left me baffled. It was like, it left me shocked. It kind of left me sad. I was just speechless watching it. So Hearts of Darkness is fantastic. It's my number 5.
I've actually never heard of that, but I'm a huge fan of like anytime when a documentary goes behind the scenes of a movie. Like I can't wait for that the Han Solo documentary in the future. But like that's always like the most interesting stuff because we're into film as kind of like our industry and whatnot. So it's really cool to kind of see the curtains being peeled, so to speak, to see like what's behind there, what the hell went on, and especially like with crazy ass movies like that. Come on, I bet that was like a lot of fun to kind of uncover the little secrets. So yeah, I definitely want to check it out. Never even heard of it. All right, so I've never done this before, but my number 5 is actually a tie because I couldn't decide between basically two documentaries that are essentially the same in terms of their structure, but I honestly couldn't decide which one because they were just both so damn good. So the first one in the 5 slot is Gleason, and the second one is Unrest. Now, Gleason follows Steve Gleason as he is diagnosed with ALS, and then you slowly get to see him kind of deteriorate as the disease takes him over while he's trying to raise a son, and he documents his whole journey, and it is one of the saddest things you'll ever watch. Speaking of saddest things you'll ever watch, Unrest is about chronic fatigue syndrome, which I had no idea even existed. So essentially what this one is that people will just go out there throughout their lives, and then one day will just have like pain or like massive fatigue and don't want to do anything, and they're in bed, and like there's just a lot of like problems that doctors even to this day still can't even like comprehend. It's just one of those kind of like mystery diseases that will take you over, and I just thought like both of them were just so good in the emotional journey of like just seeing like the fight in humanity, no matter what happens, no matter what disease takes a hold of you. It's just one of those kind of like inspirational documentaries in this case about just people just fighting the fight and just trying to find a cure for it, and really raising awareness, so to speak, so people know about it. The Unrest movie I saw this past year at the Dallas International Film Festival. I threw it up on my YouTube channel, and usually like these usually these documentaries don't get that many hits, but this one kind of blew up, and a lot of people down below in the comments said that they had CFS, and they said thank you for doing this to bring awareness to like people. And I said, yeah, it brought awareness to me. I didn't even know it existed. So it's kind of cool like when people that actually have the condition watch your video and are just thankful for it. And like I even thanked the movie in my review. I was like, thank you for bringing this to my attention. It's one of those kind of like mystery things that we still don't even know about. And of course ALS is really devastating to watch as well, but this guy just kept on fighting, and he was a loving husband, father, and it was just sad to see him kind of like get frustrated sometimes, and like his wife get frustrated, and like the fact that he couldn't really talk to his newborn. It's so sad, but like there's also hope that lies within these movies to really just kind of show you that even though these people were struck down with something, they're not going to quit. They're going to keep on fighting. And so those are my 2 as the tie. Could not decide. They're actually both that damn good. Brian, what do you think about that?
Gleason was one I did want to check out. I wanted to check it out for sure, but I never got around to seeing it. The other one, what's it called?
Uh, Unrest.
Unrest. I never heard of it till now. It sounds pretty interesting. I would like to check that one out as well. Definitely. Gleason was one I really wanted to see, but it was never playing around here. So I'm hoping it comes on Netflix soon or some streaming service so I can watch it because I really do want to check it out desperately.
Yeah, I mean it's really sad, but I think, like I said, it'll kind of touch your heart with like a good dose of humanity that's desperately needed in dark times, especially in this country. So,
Yes.
I would highly suggest to check that one out. All right, so moving on to number 4. What do you got?
Okay, my number 4 is another documentary. It's not necessarily about a film, but it was later adapted into a film. My number 4 is Man on Wire. And for people who don't know what this documentary is, this is about Mr. Philippe Petit, and it covers his high wire walk between the Twin Towers in the 70s. And I had never heard this story until Robert Zemeckis came out with The Walk from a few years back, which I thought was a pretty underrated movie. I liked that movie a lot. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I think it's one of the more underrated films of his catalog. Man on Wire, watching this, I have to say, the movie did a good job at, basically putting it all together, making it like a heist movie of sorts, and then obviously the walk sequence was extremely well done. In the movie, the documentary, excuse me, there was a lot of interviews with Petit himself, and I watched this right before the movie came out just to get an idea of what I was getting into, and it was really interesting because, the guy had so much passion for being a high wire artist. I mean, it's shown in the movie, but the documentary does a really good job at showcasing how much Petit loves what he does. And, there was my favorite moment in the movie. I mean, sure, it was cool, looking at pictures of the infamous walk sequence. There wasn't any footage from what I remembered of the walk. There was a really somber part when someone asked him about 9/11 because after Petit did the walk, he stayed in New York, and he's still there, I believe, to this day. I think he's still there. Maybe he went back to France. I don't know, in all honesty. But the 9/11 part really got to me. I mean, I'm not far from New York, so 9/11, the whole tragedy to the world. But for him as a New Yorker, it really got to me. And obviously because, he walked across those two towers. So, it was really interesting to see, and I thought it was really compelling. I thought it was really fast. It was directed by James Marsh, and this film actually won the documentary Oscar. James Marsh went on to later direct The Theory of Everything, the Stephen Hawking biopic, and it was just all around really, really great. And I love this one. I really think it's one that everyone should check out. It's so good.
Yeah, it's one of those documentaries I did not get a chance to see, but I love the Robert Zemeckis film that completely bombed in theaters. Once again, people have this weird bug repellent on modern Zemeckis movies. They don't want to go anywhere near Flight. They don't want to go anywhere near The Walk. Allied was fine, so I'll give him that one. But still, he's doing some good shit in his kind of modern Renaissance, and it's just people are just not paying attention. But The Walk was so riveting. I love that whole high wire sequence, so I can't even imagine watching the documentary with actual photographs of the real man that did this. What a fucking crazy thing to do. But it's like you said, high wiring was his act. That was his passion, and the fact that he wanted to do this just because he could, that's amazing. And the fact that he didn't fall is also amazing. It's that is some scary ass shit. I am not a fan of heights, but what's really funny with me, ironically, I will ride a roller coaster, but I will not step on a stepladder, god damn it, because there's nothing holding you. There's nothing supporting you. You are just waiting to crack your neck, break it, just like $1 million baby, and then you'll be paralyzed forever. And so maybe I should stop watching movies like that. But no, just watching The Walk with Joseph Gordon-Levitt made me want to watch the documentary, so eventually I will check it out for sure, because I want to see the real life story. because obviously it was a good enough story for someone like Robert Zemeckis to want to adapt it. So, yeah, great pick. Especially you picked an Oscar winner. My number 4, I'm going to go with the first one I ever watched as a teenager. Like, first ever documentary I remember ever watching and being fascinated with the documentary structure. I was fat back in the day. And so, I gravitated towards food a lot. And so I remember walking through my video store. Yes, rental stores were still a thing back in the day. I walked through the rental store, and I always kept walking past this DVD of this dude with a bunch of fucking French fries in his mouth. Like, who the fuck is this guy? So I kept passing it, right? And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna ever watch this. I don't know what it is, but people started talking about it, and they're like, wow, this guy's making like a really good point in this movie. And so I was like, okay, fine. So I gave in to peer pressure on MySpace, probably, because that's what it was back in the day. And so I watched it, and I've seen it like a million times. Not really, but I would say about 10. It's probably, like, this one in my number 3 slot I've watched more times than most films in my collection, because I love watching Super Size Me. What a great, entertaining documentary about obesity and just kind of like the fast food epidemic in this country. And it's directed by Morgan Spurlock. And at this point, I don't think he's with this chick anymore, but at this point, his girlfriend in the documentary was a vegetarian, and so he was vegetarian. And so he went on a McDonald's diet for a month just to see how his weight wouldn't fluctuate, his blood pressure, just everything about it. He was going to kind of track his motions throughout this challenge. And so for McDonald's diet, he'd have to have it for lunch or breakfast, lunch, and dinner. At this point, before the documentary and pretty much enforces, not supersizing anymore, if they asked him to supersize it, he had to do it. Like, there were specific rules. He had to have, like, one of everything on the menu. Water does count because that's on the menu. But he has to have at least one of everything. He has to have it for 3 meals a day. And this documentary did spark the whole supersize thing to where they can't ask you that anymore. But now they have officially obliterated that because now McDonald's is probably going to go down the shitter eventually, because this movie basically kind of, like, kicked off that movement. But I think what Morgan did best in this documentary is not only is it insightful and informational about the health epidemic in this country and how we are so addicted to fats and sugars and whatnot, it's also entertaining. It's an entertaining fucking documentary to see this, like, skinny ass, like, vegetarian go through this McDonald's diet. But there are a couple points that make you kind of, like, are just disgusted with, capitalism and just people, making their food addictive to a point where, like, you keep coming back and stuff. It's absolutely gross. But I think the one moment that got me was he had, like I said, if someone asked him, would you like to supersize this meal, he had to do it. There was one where it was like a double quarter pounder with cheese supersized meal. And that's a lot of fucking food, even for, like, a big dude like me, which I don't even eat fast food anymore. But, like, that is a shit ton of food. He threw up. And so when you watch that, you're like, wow. Like, I don't want to eat from this fucking place anymore. Like, that's how devastating this documentary is. And he goes to a bunch of specialists all throughout and whatnot. And, like I said, they track his physical kind of attributes and his blood pressure and whatnot. It just goes through the roof, man. Like, it's disturbing. Now, he did live in New York at the filming of this, so he did walk around a lot. So that probably did help with his calorie burning, but still, eating McDonald's for 3 times a day is probably not the best thing for you. They also interviewed, like, the guy that's eating, like, 30,000 Big Macs or whatever the fuck number it was. I think at this point he's passed on, but, like, he's a legend for eating that many Big Macs. I don't think it's like 30,000, but it's some ridiculous number. But just great interviews, it's a great health documentary for sure. It was the first ever big health documentary I remember ever blowing up. I don't know if Brian ever remembers its kind of like impact or whatever, but Super Size Me is one of my first ever documentaries I remember ever seeing and just being so affected by it that I didn't eat McDonald's for a very long time. And I still don't to this day, maybe occasionally, but I don't eat fast food anymore. It's like a rarity now. It's like maybe once a year if I'm like feeling terrible about myself. So Super Size Me, Morgan Spurlock, probably my favorite thing he's ever directed, because he has done several other documentaries. He even did a docu-TV series, but this is by far the best thing he's ever done.
Yeah, that's my number 3.
All right, Brian, carry it over. What did I miss?
Honestly, you didn't miss anything. You said everything I was gonna say. Super Size Me, I watched it freshman year of health, and oh my god, I was so blown away. I mean, I don't mind fast food. I still enjoy it from time to time. I can't. Like, honestly, watching this documentary made me sick to my stomach, but god damn it, it was really good. It was a really good documentary. Morgan Spurlock, he did so good with this. Yeah, the guy, I gotta commend him, because doing this experiment for a whole month, I don't get it how he got through it. I don't know how he did it, but he fucking did it. And, it is a depressing matter because, he gained a lot of weight. I believe he gained like 25 pounds. It took him like a year at least to lose all that weight. A year. That's a long time. And he experienced like mood swings. His sex drive was all over the place. It was actually really insane. I think something almost happened to his liver. From what I remember, I haven't seen the documentary in years, but from what I remember, it was just really depressing. And I'll be honest, when I saw this, I'm like, I didn't know McDonald's ever had a supersized meal thing, and it's crazy that it actually existed, and it's good that it's no longer a thing because of this documentary. Because if this documentary had never come out, or if anyone never said anything about the supersized meals, then the supersized meals would probably still be a thing, and that's not good when you think about it. But it's really great, and it was nominated for the Oscar. I think it should have won the Oscar. I don't know what won the Oscar that year. I'm going to check that up right now as we speak. The film that won that year is Born in Brothels, which I have no idea what that is. It's an Indian-American documentary. I'm sure it's good, but whatever. But Super Size Me, Morgan Spurlock, great job. It's crazy. You brought up how he directed so many different things. It shocks me that he directed a documentary on One Direction. So it makes me laugh at the same time. My girlfriend's a huge One Direction fan, so or One Direction supporter. But luckily, she did not squeal when Harry Styles first appeared on screen in Dunkirk. I told her that if she did, I would leave, but she didn't, and I'm proud of her for that. I love her for that. But yeah, Super Size Me is amazing. I mean, the song is a little annoying. The Rock and Roll McDonald's, it's a little stale, but you know what? The movie's incredible nonetheless. It's my number 3.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first ever like health documentary I remember ever sweeping the nation, because there are many health documentaries now, just kind of like on where our food comes from and whatnot. But this one really it was the first like entertaining one that, yes, was very fun to watch, but also very informative to really kind of like let people's eyes be open to the food that your children are eating and like you're eating and whatnot. So yeah, it's definitely one of the best ever. I've seen that movie like 10 times. It's so good. You know what else I've seen 10 times? My number 3 pick. This film is not yet rated. I can't stress to you how fucking fun this movie is to watch. Directed by Kirby Dick, who also did one of my favorites of 2015, The Hunting Ground, about sexual assault and rape on campuses.
He did that? That's insane. I didn't know that until now. That's crazy.
Yeah, so Kirby Dick did Hunting Ground. He also did that one about women being sexually assaulted in the military. Do you remember that one? I forgot what it was called. But that one was, I heard, really good as well. But this one was kind of like a more lighter, fun tone. So this one kind of focuses on the MPAA and the rating system, and what makes something rated R and what makes something NC-17 is the amount of humps that the guy penetrates on the woman, is the amount of F-bombs. It's just fucking insane that this group of anonymous people dictate what you can watch. And he really kind of uncovers that. He hires 2 PI people, and they fucking like track these people down, and like it's just insane, like how old they are, and like how religious they are, and it's just crazy, dude. And then of course they interview a bunch of filmmakers like Matt Stone from the Trey Parker and Matt Stone, South Park and whatnot, Kevin Smith, a bunch of these other filmmakers, and they kind of get their like take on this. Like, Kevin Smith put it perfectly. It's like, why should this group of anonymous people dictate what you watch, and slap it on with the rating that you can't potentially see, because you have to be 17 for an R-rated movie. You gotta be somewhat of a teenager-ish for a PG-13 movie. You can't just be like a 5-year-old walking in there. So, there's rules and regulations, but the rules and regulations are so skewed because each film is so different. Like they were, I forgot which movie it was, but I think it was like Memoirs of a Geisha. That movie, like from 2004, they rate it with a PG-13. But that movie is pretty sexual, and it's like, okay, you give that one a PG-13, but then you'll give like the King's Speech to say like 7 F words in R. Like it just, the whole rating system in this country. Brian and I should do a fucking special on this, because it pisses me off that like some of these films will say like a couple F words, you get an R rating, but God forbid you have like a bunch of fucking violence everywhere. It's PG-13, so it's just insane. Our rating system is fucked up. It's backwards, because we are a country that gets so offended by sex and sexual activity and nudity, to where like when violence happens, like beheadings and bloody gory shit, they would favor the blood and the gore over a mild sex scene. Like, oh, a couple more penetrations and that'd be NC-17. It's like, okay, so why is it 2 penetrations for R and why is it 4 for NC-17? Like, why does that make a difference? It's just the same thing with the language. Kids nowadays, they know all the words. So slapping a PG-13 rating because they have one F-bomb is fine, but if they say one more, God forbid, it's going to hurt their little, virgin ears. It's just, like I said, the whole system is just kind of fucked up. And what Kirby Dick did, he actually submitted his documentary, the one we're watching, into the MPAA. And he said, can you rate my film, please? And they said, it's NC-17 for explicit sexual content. And he's just like, oh, but I'm just showing it as a reference point. It's really never, it's not really, and it's like censored. There's like black bars over there. They're like, oh, we don't care. This is your rating. And what's crazy is like he actually takes you through the whole like appeal system, because if you get rated with something, you can actually appeal it to get it lower. Kevin Smith, Clerks, I believe, got an NC-17 when it first was submitted, and he actually repealed it and then eventually got brought down to an R with like minimal cuts. And so Kirby Dick actually got to the appeal, but they said no, NC-17. And he would ask him and bring up other movies as to, examples, going, well, this movie was pretty much the same, like, length and sexual activity as mine, yet you give it an R. And they're just like, oh, we don't care. Like, they won't, like, answer any questions. It's, like, very secretive. It's, like, a high society type of deal. It's fucking weird, man. It's almost like a cult. But, yeah, it's a fascinating documentary about the rating system in this country with film. It'll just kind of blow your mind on how corrupt it is, basically, and how, skewed it is, and how agenda pushing it is. Kids, you can have all the violence and language you want, but God forbid you see a fucking nipple, your heads are going to explode. It's like, oh my God, like, look at fucking Europe. They're just like, you know what? Sex and nudity, that's a part of human life. Because it is. Because it fucking is. We're all naked under clothes. Sex is a part of human nature. Violence is not. So it's like, it's so fucking backwards. Anyways, go watch this film. It's not yet rated. Definitely one of my favorites for sure. But that and Super Size Me were some of the first ones I ever watched, and they're definitely the most entertaining. And then my top 2 are, yes, entertaining, but definitely more emotionally gut-punching. That's why I put those on top of these. So that is my number 3.
Yeah, that one to me, it definitely sparked my interest. I remember it's funny. The theater that I work at, we don't really show documentaries. I remember when I was a little kid, I saw a poster for that, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" And I watched it a few years back, and it was really interesting. Like, I always wanted to check it out again. But it's crazy to me that you just said that the guy who made this directed The Hunting Ground, which is one that I really want to watch. And yeah, this film is not yet rated. It's definitely one of the more entertaining documentaries out there, alongside Super Size Me. And yeah, it's really, especially if you're a huge moviegoer, it's really quite interesting. If you're someone that's always baffled with the way the ratings work, this is definitely one to check out for sure. Because the MPAA, I question them all the time. No matter what they do, I don't remember the last. I don't remember the last movie that I saw where I was like actually questioning them. I think it might have been, and I could be wrong with this. The Magnificent Seven made me question the MPAA.
Dude, that was a violent as fuck movie. I don't know how they got away with PG-13.
It was very violent, and when it said PG-13 from the trailers, I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. Then I saw the movie, and I'm like, yeah, no, not PG-13. R, like, come on, like there are plenty of movies out there that may be violent that are PG-13, but they're able to obtain that PG-13 rating. Like Dunkirk's PG-13 rating actually worked for what it was, even though there were some borderline R-rated moments in it for sure. But yeah, the MPAA is crazy as fuck, like the motherfucker named Ice Cube. And yeah, this film is not yet rated. It's pretty fucking solid.
Yeah, it's really good. But I gotta be honest with you though, just as a pure like powerful documentary, I think I like The Hunting Ground more, and it's not because of the subject matter. The subject matter is very dark and depressing, but it kind of like opens your eyes up a little bit about what's happening on college campuses and whatnot. So out of the ones I've seen, The Hunting Ground is probably my favorite, but I've seen This Film Is Not Yet Rated more times. And just on a pure entertainment level, because I had to put some levity on my list. I couldn't just put all dark and depressing shit. The Hunting Ground is definitely an honorable mention for sure, but This Film Is Not Yet Rated was one of my first ones, so that's why I'm going to give it the boost. So, all right. So, jumping into number 2, this is going to be interesting because I don't know Brian's documentary taste. I don't know it at all, so I don't have any inkling on what his top 2 could be. So, Brian, spin that shit. What is your number 2?
All right, my number 2 is the second Oscar-winning documentary I'm going to put on the list. Now, this is the most recent documentary on the list. This fucking documentary, I remember seeing the trailer for it, and I wasn't really well-rounded with the entertainer that it focused on. That's why I'm saying entertainer. I'm not going to say if it's an actor or a singer or a comedian. I'm not going to say who exactly it revolves around.
Oh, I know which one you're going for.
Yeah, well, now Chase knows, but for people who don't know, I'll continue this. So I saw the trailer, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not really well-rounded with this person, but it looks really haunting, looks very cool, and I've always been interested to hear about this person's background because this person went through some very terrible shit, and it's very depressing all around. But, when you have a certain studio called A24 behind it, for a fucking fact you're going to get an incredible piece of film, and that is what we got when Amy came out 2 years ago, the documentary on the late singer Amy Winehouse. Before this documentary had come out, like I said, I didn't really know much about her. I didn't really listen to her music, so I wasn't really well-rounded. I knew of her. I remember reading stuff when she died. I remember I don't know. I remember walking around and I saw it on the news or in papers. I remember seeing it as a headline. It was like a big deal. She won a lot of Grammys, so I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's sad, whatever. So this documentary comes out, and the documentary, what's interesting about this one, for me at least, is that it's all vocal interviews. Like, you don't see anyone's faces when they're interviewing people, which is something that isn't really noticed in documentaries. And despite not being a humongous fan of Amy Winehouse, I got really sad when watching this because, she was a fantastic singer. She had a beautiful voice, and clearly she liked, showing her music off to the world, but she hated the fame. She hated the paparazzi. There's a lot of scary sequences where the paparazzi comes and they put like emphasis on the camera, like they emphasize the flashes, and it actually really got to me. Even though I'm not a celebrity, but like, it was just the celebrity life could be a horrible one, and this is kind of what led to her downward spiral. Also, she was clean for a long period of time, but then she got into, drugs and, drinking and, you know, watching the documentary, her father, what a despicable human being he was. I don't want to blame anybody for her death, but if he told her to go and get help, I'm not going to make any assumptions, but if he told her, she probably could have still been alive. She probably wouldn't have died. She was only 27 when she passed away, and
I mean, just to put that in perspective, folks, like that's how old I am right now. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful kind of like a horror movie in some way, and Amy Winehouse, I wish she got a longer life because, like I said, her music was great because after I saw the documentary, I listened to a few of her songs and I was really blown away. Like, I was truly blown away. And, this film won the Oscar, and I knew that. Like, I was hoping that from the beginning when I saw the movie in the summer. This was the last document. This is actually one of the only few documentaries I had seen in the theater. Actually, I think it's the only one as of right now that I've seen in the theater because I don't usually get documentaries where I live, so it's very hard for me to get them at any theater. But Amy was incredible, and A24 at the time, and they still are to this day, pumping out amazing content. And 2015 was a great year for them. Well, every year so far has been a great year for them. So, yeah, Amy's fantastic, and Winehouse fan or not, it's definitely worth a watch. It is a very hard watch, I can tell you that right now, but it's so engaging that I just really loved learning about Amy Winehouse and her downward spiral and how fame could really ruin someone's life, despite, going down a bad path. And she was just a young woman who wanted to make music, and that's it. And it led to her going towards a terrible demise. And yeah, Amy's my number 2. It's absolutely incredible. And yes, it isn't something I would rewatch a lot, but it's one of the best documentaries I've ever seen personally.
Yeah, listen, that's a really good one for sure. And this is no joke. The only time I ever heard about Amy Winehouse was when they made a stupid reference in that shitty disaster movie. I was like, who is this? And so I looked her up. I realized she was a singer. I didn't realize any of that. And so, yeah, she looked like she was on drugs, and it's like she didn't like keep up her appearance like the last year she was alive, and so I just never thought anything of it. I was like, okay, it's a singer that likes to party a lot. Okay, what this documentary did, just like with Brian, is that it kind of opened up my eyes a little bit because she was a damn good singer, and she left us way too soon. She was very passionate about what she did. She had a wonderful, angelic, kind of full, rich voice that you would never expect from someone that tiny. Like, she was a very tiny woman, so it's like, you wouldn't expect it. And I was blown away. I loved her music. I loved her kind of just energy that she had, like her aura. It was just, that movie completely just changed my mind about her. And we're in this culture now where a bunch of musicians do take their lives. Whether it be on purpose or accident, it's sad. The level of fame that can get to your head and really kind of destroy you, and have these people that hate your music affect you, and you just not feeling like you're good enough. Like, it's just, you got to get help. There's support out there. Like, you are loved. You are loved by people. Please go find that love and go change your life, please. Because you being gone from the world, no one's asking for it. We want you to stay here. And so when you see someone as young as Amy Winehouse kind of tragically die like that, it's sad because, like I said, she's my age when she died, and she could have been one of the best. Like, that's how good she was. And like I said, this documentary just made me realize that we did lose one of the greats. So, it's sad, but, I'm glad there was a documentary made about her. It's a great way to honor her. So, I mean, that's the best way to say it. So, my number 2 was my third favorite film last year, and I can't believe this wasn't nominated for Best Documentary, but I understand, only because the competition was a little too crowded. I'm not going to lie. I saw this in the theater, and luckily the director was there. I saw it at the Dallas International Film Festival, where I see most of my documentaries, by the way. I saw it. I was blown away by how it was made. I was blown away by the actual narrative and the fact that it didn't feel like a documentary. It felt like a real movie. This one documents pretty much the first ever public, well-known mass shooting in Austin, Texas, and this documentary is Tower. Now, if you were I'm gonna do a little mini pitch to you guys and kind of mini review this. If you think what I'm saying is cool, it is on Netflix. Please go check this shit out. You will not be disappointed. So it documents the first ever kind of public mass shooting in the 60s in Austin, Texas, and it kind of is told through the survivors' kind of point of view, whether they were on the ground hiding away from the gunmen, or if they were cops or civilians trying to help the people on the ground. It's just a bunch of different people with different perspectives, all coming together and remembering this very tragic and horrific day. But the way it is told is what won me over. This has oh shit, Brian, what is it called? It's a Scanner Darkly type of animation where it's
blend. I know it. Rotoscope.
Yeah, it's like rotoscope animation where it's it's filmed like footage, and then they rotoscope kind of colors on it, and illustrators will kind of paint over it, if that makes any sense. It's hard to describe, but it's kind of like if you've ever seen a Scanner Darkly, or at least the trailer to that movie. It's kind of like that, where it's like moving watercolors almost. Anyways, this movie is kind of told like that. And I say movie because it kind of blurs that line, because it's told from the perspectives of the survivors, like I said, but the director decided to make it into an actual narrative. So it feels like a suspenseful thriller the entire time. And it's just so well done. You don't even think it's a documentary. They don't ever go into the killer. They mention his name, and that's it. This is more about a story of courage and survival of these random people that were thrown in this hellish situation just to watch them try to get out. And there was one that was stuck on the ground because the gunman fired off and hit her significant other, but she was unharmed, but she didn't want to get hurt, so she just stayed on the ground and acted like she was dead. And she was actually pregnant, and it was 100 degrees outside, and her skin was burning on the asphalt, and it's just stuff like that it was so gripping and compelling, and it got under your skin and just made your skin crawl. It was so well done. And the director was there, and I oh my god, after I got done watching the movie, I was like, this is it, folks. This is going to win Best Documentary. And of course, the competition last year was fucking stiff, man. But this is a really well done documentary. One of my favorites I've ever seen. And I saw this last year. So yeah, it's just one of those ones that kind of blew me away, caught me off guard. It was either last year or 2015. So now I'm second guessing myself. But no, it was one of those ones that kind of came out of nowhere, surprised the hell out of me. Really great animation, really great storytelling, and at the end of the documentary, you'll just start crying and weeping because you were just so invested into these characters' journeys. But then they're not characters; they're real life people, and then I think that's where the humanity will kind of touch you and kind of connect you. Is at the very end when you realize that these were just people reliving this experience, and it was told in this animation form. It's one of those documentaries, man, that'll just blow you away. You're like, I can't believe documentaries can actually reach this level. So you're probably thinking to yourself, what the fuck is my number one if I'm talking so goddamn highly of this? Well, I'll explain in just a minute. But Tower is my number 2. It's on Netflix. Chronicles the first ever public mass shooting in Austin, Texas, in my capital, basically, in the 60s, and on the college campus of University of Texas. So, Brian, did you get a chance to watch this yet? Because I've been telling you to fucking watch this for a very long time now.
I haven't watched it yet. It's on my watch list. I'm sorry, Senor Chase. I'm sorry. I really do want to check it out. There's a lot on my watch list right now with television and movies, and Tower seemed really interesting. Obviously, yeah, you praised it excessively, and I was like, okay, I'll check it out, and I haven't yet, but I really want to. I know it's short, so it won't be too much of my time, but it does sound interesting.
It's on Netflix. It's so fast paced, you won't even realize the time.
Yes, I do want to check it out. I will check it out as soon as I can. Hopefully it's not going anywhere from Netflix soon, so hopefully it stays there, and then I could watch it, and then I could be like, oh my gosh, wow, this is incredible. Oh my geez, wow.
Yeah,
so
it's something, man. I can't. Words don't even describe it justice. Kind of like my number one pick. But before we get into mine, Brian, what is your favorite documentary of all time so far? Because I'm curious, because we don't ever talk about this genre, so I want to know, like, which one tickled your fancy the most?
Okay, so as I said, pretty much all these documentaries are related to film or whatnot, or entertainment or whatnot. The only one that wasn't related to entertainment was Super Size Me. Oh, and I guess Man on Wire, but that was adapted into a movie. So my number one documentary came out a few years ago, and it was one of my favorites of that year, favorite movies of that year. And it wasn't my number one. So I'll try to tease this up, but I will probably give it away unintentionally. So I love film. I love film a lot, and it's been something I've loved ever since I was a little kid. As I got older, I started watching most of these iconic films, and then I started wanting to make it and I can't even speak. I'm too excited about this one. And as I got older, I started to make my own films, started to write them out, started just editing random stuff, because I just loved the art of filmmaking. I loved the passion that was put into it. I loved the craft. I loved the dedication. I love film. I love hearing stuff from the actors and the writers and the directors, cinematographers, editors, composers, what have you. So for about 40 years, or 50 years, I should say, there was one person out there that really inspired a lot of people when it came to films. And people were like, oh, so you're talking about a filmmaker, am I right? Not exactly. I'm talking about someone who spent their time talking about films for their job. And this person inspired me, inspired Chase, inspired a lot of these people all over the world to talk about their love for film. My favorite documentary of all time is from 2014. It is called Life Itself.
Yep, that was Jackson's number one of that year. Like, he fucking loved that movie.
Oh my god!
It's Jackson. For all you people that don't know, he's a occasional guest on my podcast, and like, I just remember him at the halfway point. He was like, "Dude, Life Itself is so good, nothing's gonna beat it." And he held on to that number one for the rest of the year. And when I watched it, I was like, "Dude, I don't blame you. It's really fucking good."
Yeah, it's really great. I mean, Roger Ebert inspired. Listen, if you're a film reviewer or movie reviewer, film critic, whatever, Roger Ebert had to inspire you. He is, without question, the most famous film critic of all time. And I loved reading this guy's reviews when I was a kid. I would watch at the movies sometimes, I didn't watch it when he did it with Siskel, because when Siskel did it, I wasn't born, and then Siskel died, I think, like, the year that I was born. So, yeah. And then he did it with Richard Roeper, who I still follow to this day. I still follow his reviews to this day. I love the guy. He's great. But Roger Ebert, he was always honest. Like, there are sometimes films that people would hate, like most critics, and he would like it, or vice versa. The guy was just all around incredible. He always loved film. I read the autobiography he wrote, and I was just like, wow, I love this guy. And he wrote that obviously before he passed away. And when he passed away, I was really heartbroken. I really love this guy a lot. And I gotta commend the guy. He's really brave for what he did. He had cancer. It was like a 10-year battle with cancer. He had it. He got rid of it. It came back. He did surgery and he lost his jaw. He lost the ability to speak. That makes me depressed. That really makes me sad because this guy was just an innocent movie. He was just a film critic and that was it. And he was a loving husband. And watching the documentary, which was directed by Stephen James, who directed Hoop Dreams, which I hear is great. It's a Criterion. I haven't seen it. It was interesting seeing the fact that they started actually filming this documentary while Ebert was still alive. Like you would see some sequences with him in the hospital, and it was actually tough to watch. Like it was really hard because Ebert would be in the hospital. He would be sometimes very enthusiastic, but then he would be very angry and everything. He's like, "Oh no, fuck this and fuck that and fuck you and everything." Like it was really scary. But also the cool thing with this documentary is that you basically get the idea of his whole life because that's what's called life itself. And there was this guy voicing Roger Ebert, and I actually thought it was kind of him for a second, but then I'm like, Roger Ebert hasn't been able to speak in like 10 years, so obviously it's not him. But it was really cool. And also, as someone who later watched clips from Siskel and Ebert, it was really cool seeing their back and forth heated arguments. Like, there were times where they would just record commercials, and they'd be like, "Oh, fuck you, Gene, and fuck you, Roger." Like, it was, like, so great, and it was awesome. And I didn't know that Roger Ebert wrote a movie. Like, I didn't know that he did that. I didn't know that he was an alcoholic. I didn't know anything about this guy. Like, I thought this guy was just a friendly, down-the-line film critic, and that was it. But he had a lot of personal struggles. And, seeing the stuff from his wife, Chaz, it was really touching. And it was just a great documentary. And as a fellow movie reviewer, Roger Ebert really inspired me. I've been doing movie reviews for like 4 or 5 years now. And so that's half a decade at this point. I really got to commend the guy. And I saw this documentary the day it came out. I didn't see it in the theater. It wasn't playing near me. So I rented it on demand. And it was so great. It was just too good. And you got some interviews from other people. Martin Scorsese was one of the people that got interviewed. It's just all around fantastic. Every film critic or movie reviewer has to watch this because without question, Roger Ebert is the reason why movie reviews are the way they are today. He was the first big one. He is the main reason why movie reviews still keep going to this day. And he inspired, I would say, a majority of film critics out there. Because I'm sure there were some that are like, Roger Ebert was okay. But he really was incredible. And his love for film was spectacular. And this film was incredible. I'm shocked that it did not get nominated for an Oscar. I don't know how it wasn't nominated. Would it have won? I have no idea. Citizen 4 was pretty good. So, that was a good one. But Life itself, it should have been nominated. I don't know why it wasn't. It was considered one of the best documentaries, if not the best of that year, by a lot of people. It did very well financially. It was on a lot of people's top 10 lists. So it should have been nominated, but Life itself, definitely the most inspirational documentary that I've ever seen. And it's my favorite documentary thus far. I just adore it tremendously.
Yeah, it's a really good one. Man, when you watch that whole journey of that documentary and you see like just how fun and outgoing he was on TV, and then you figure all of his personal struggles, and you hear stuff from his wife, and then the cancer hits, and you see him in the hospital. You just see a guy that, he's like all of us. He's a very flawed human being, but it looked like he was very fun to be around. He just loved movies. Film was his life. And it really just kind of made him happy. It was one of the happiest things in his life. And, the fact that his life had to end tragically like that, especially with like his jaw and everything, it's sad. But he lived a long life, and it should have been longer, but he did live a very happy life. And that's something you can kind of like appreciate, because the movie is called Life Itself. It's just about a man enjoying life, and there's nothing more inspiring than that for sure. So you definitely picked the more inspirational pick. I decided to go with the unconventional holy fuck pick. So my number one. Let me set the mood for you. It's 2016. You know, it was a long time ago. We try not to remember it. So the Oscar nominations come out. And so I usually try to make it my duty every single year to try to see all the pictures nominated in documentary and feature and all that stuff and animated. So, 13th was nominated. Okay. I saw 13th on Netflix. Very, very good. About, kind of like modern day, like, slavery that's pretty much like adapted under the name prison and whatnot. Like, it was fascinating. I love that shit. Good stuff. I did not see I Am Not Your Negro. I heard it was really great. I've heard from people like Joel and stuff. Really well done. A couple others that were nominated, I just didn't get a chance to watch, so it was okay. Number 5. I heard great things about it, but I never gave it a shot. I saw that it was on Hulu, broken up into 3 parts, of course. And part 1 was 3.5 hours. Part 2 was 3.5 hours. And part 3 was about an hour and 15, hour 20. So I was like, okay, if I want to watch this movie, I got to sink 8.5 hours of my life into this. There's no way I'm going to watch all 3 in one sitting. There's just no way. I have stuff to do. I have a life. Well, fuck me with a cactus, because I watched all 8.5 hours in one goddamn sitting. It was one of the best things I've ever seen, period. And at this point, when I was watching it, I had already watched season 1 of People vs. OJ. But I gotta tell you, that 8.5 hour long amazing documentary, OJ Made in America, is by far the best thing I have ever seen in the documentary genre, besides a couple things on Netflix, but those are more docu-series, so I couldn't count it. But we're talking feature, which I know a lot of people will argue, like, well, this one was introduced as a 5-parter on ESPN. True, but I watched it in its movie form. I watched it in all 3 parts. And the only reason Hulu had to break it up is because they're not going to put an 8-hour-long documentary on there. So, first one's 3 hours, that's fine. Second one, 3. So they had to break it up. I understand that. But I watched it as one full, long movie sitting. This is one of those ones that tackles everything it was trying to go for. It starts out with OJ in his college years, playing football. And it ends with him being arrested in Nevada. So it's basically his whole damn life, where it tackles the justice system. It tackles racial discrimination. It tackles police brutality. It tackles fame and what it can do to you. It tackles, people with mental illnesses. Like, it's so fucking crazy how it goes from this to that to this to that. It never seems like it's like separate things. It all comes together as one cohesive journey of this one man and that goddamn case from the 90s that everyone still remembers, and the whole Orenthal James Simpson, you were not guilty. We all remember that. I was a little kid at the time when the case was going on, but when you get older and you see the footage, and especially this movie has like a 2-hour chunk dedicated to the trial, and it is just wonderful to watch. Like, you were absolutely compelled, and you might have already seen this in the 90s, or you might have already seen the TV show on FX, but you're still riveted. You're like, I want to know what happens, even though you know what happens. You're still like, maybe there's like some hope, like, something will change. And it's like, no, they show, they show the judge and they get his point of view. They show the jurors and they interview a couple jurors, and it's just, and that's just one part of it. Before that, they show a lengthy part of the actual car chase. Before that, they show his relationship with Nicole. Then they show the murder, and then after the trial, they show how he couldn't really do anything afterwards because people just didn't trust him. So he went on a party bender in Vegas, and then eventually, got arrested and put in jail for assault. Not for the case in the 90s, but for a different case, and he's actually going to be paroled this year. So this documentary was like perfect timing, coming out last year. But I just think for that whole 8.5 hours, you really get a good glimpse into this man's life, and you're with him for 1 second, then another second you might be against him. And that's what's great about this documentary, is it kind of goes all over the place throughout his life. But this was his life. He was all over the place. And he was just a fascinating character to watch. The first time I ever saw OJ was when I was a teenager, and I saw Naked Gun, when he played the supporting role with Leslie Nielsen. Yeah, it's a funny movie and stuff, but now it's a little awkward to watch after you watch this documentary. You're like, yeah, this motherfucker did it. It's like, there's so much like guilt and just so much out there that it's just like, how did he not do it? It's either he did it or he had some help and he was straight up an accomplice. But he was involved in that shit. He just was. And when you watch this documentary, it'll just kind of open up your eyes a little bit. But what a powerful documentary. Like I said, fame, racial discrimination, police brutality, the justice system, America in general, and how we treat the justice system and celebrity culture. It covers all of that in this 8.5 hour long epic fucking journey. If you were curious about it and you want to spend 8.5 hours of amazingness, it's on Hulu, broken up into 3 parts. Go fucking watch it. So that is my number 1.
Yeah, OJ and the Made in America. I watched it as well before the Oscars, and I was so riveted. I didn't watch it in one sitting. I watched it within the period of 2 days. So I watched the half of it, then the other half the following day. Yeah, I had seen People vs. OJ Simpson when it was live on television, and that 10-episode miniseries was one of last year's best pieces of television. Everyone was great in it. It was so well written, felt real. I loved it. Watching the documentary, though, I was so riveted. And it might, while I obviously didn't put it as my favorite one, I think it's the best documentary I've ever seen. And it's funny, like, how you brought that up, because now it's really relevant, because now the whole parole thing just happened, and it's insane. Like, an 8.5 hour documentary, and people were probably complaining. They're like, oh, but it was like a TV. Yeah, but let's not face facts, guys. Let's not beat this around the bush. It won the fucking Oscar. It won the Oscar. An 8.5 hour documentary won an Academy Award. And that's awesome, because this story was very relevant last year. I mean, we had 2 O.J. Simpson depictions on screen. We had it in the form of a miniseries and then in the form of a documentary. And the documentary covered everything. You said it yourself. Went from his college years all the way to the Las Vegas robbery. And it was incredible. There was nothing I've ever seen like this. And honestly, I don't think there will ever be a documentary like this ever made again. And if there is, it's never going to top this. It's never going to be on the same levels as this, because this did a really good job at telling the whole story of O.J. Simpson. And yeah, excellent choice for sure. Yep. O.J. Simpson. Yep.
Yeah. Basically, after you get done watching that, you're like, O.J. Simpson, you're a character, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You might be a dick and you might have murdered some people, but you're very entertaining. Your story as a character. But yeah, no, it's really great, guys. That one's on Hulu. Tower's on Netflix. I believe this film is not yet rated is on Netflix as well. Could be wrong, but I would highly suggest check out all these that Brian and I have listed. So what are some of your favorite documentaries? I know this is a genre we haven't even touched yet, so it's kind of fascinating. I want to know all your options and opinions down below. No. Now, to honorable mentions, I'm just going to whip by them really, really fast, and I'm actually going to tell you which each one of them is about. So, you guys ready? Because I'm not going to say it again. You guys ready for this? I'm about to spit some fire. All right. For my honorable mentions, Fuck is a great documentary about the word and just pretty much its cultural impact. Hot Girls Wanted is about cam girls, which is really, really fascinating. Batman and Bill, just watched that this year about Bill Finger and Bob Kane and the whole Batman creation and whatnot, and how Bob Kane screwed Bill Finger over. So fuck Bob Kane. Oh wait, he's dead. Whatever. 13th, like I said, Ava DuVernay last year. Modern day slavery, basically under the blanket of the prison system. Tickled. What an interesting documentary about tickling fetishes and just uncovering like the world of like just how fucked up it is. Catfish, based on well, now it's a TV show, but like, you know, Neve Schulman was documented by his brother and his friend, and basically he was talking to this chick online. He goes to meet her. It's not who she is, and catfish, all that stuff. Now it is a term that is used in the online dating world. Believe it or not, because I have been catfish. The Bad Kids, very, very awesome documentary. I saw the same year as Tower, I believe, and this one's about a group of kids in this school in California that's basically meant for like dropouts and like just bad children that have been suspended or expelled from other schools around the country. So it's like a just a building filled with, you know, basically the rejected kids, so to speak, the bad kids. And it kind of shows how some of them are willing to change their lives, how some of them aren't. I really liked it quite a bit. It kind of caught me off guard. Get Me Roger Stone. Speaking of politics, this one's about Roger Stone, how he basically like forced Trump to run, and how he has created Trump who he is today, and created the agenda, the rhetoric, everything. This guy is a fucking madman, just like Trump is, but it's still a fascinating one nonetheless. Speaking of political stuff, Weiner focuses on Anthony Weiner, basically recovering from his sex scandal while also getting in another sex scandal while the documentary is still going. What? Next one, Beware the Slender Man. This one's about two girls who basically took the Slender Man mythos and thought it was real, and they killed a classmate because of it. It's disturbing shit, but still fascinating. The Nightmare, which focuses on sleep paralysis, where it's that thing where you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't move your body, and sometimes people see visions like in the corner of the room and shit. It's creepy. I've had paralysis once in my life, and it's scary shit, man. I could not move. Like, I felt like I couldn't breathe. So that one's actually really scary. It's actually a really good horror one. Grizzly Man, really great one about this guy who just loved bears and eventually got eaten by them. Yeah, it's interesting. Of course, Amy, like Brian. Blackfish, which is uncovers the kind of mistreatment of all the sea animals in SeaWorld, and now SeaWorld's tanking as a business, so good for them. Thin Blue Line, about a certain police case back in the 90s. It's probably the oldest documentary I've ever seen, because I believe it was released in the 90s. I saw that in documentary class. I really enjoyed it. The Wolf Pack, about these four kids who basically are homeschooled, never go outside, and pretty much only know the world through Quentin Tarantino movies and movies in general. So that one's really fun. Room 237, which is about
yes,
which is about the Shining, and how Room 237 is like, you know, does it mean that Stanley Kubrick, you know, little messages here and there? Did he fake the moon landing? Woo! Conspiracy. It's really fun to watch. The Cove, which is based on dolphins being hunted outside the shores of Japan, and, you know, how they're mistreated and whatnot. It's disturbing shit for sure. I believe it's Hero Dreams of Sushi. This is a sushi maker who has like a restaurant that has like 5 chairs in it, and it's really hard to get a reservation. It's just about a chef who loves food and making food, and he makes beautiful looking food. It's really fun to watch. Life Itself, and of course Bowling for Columbine, which is about the Columbine shootings. It was Michael Moore's first film. And then he did Fahrenheit 9/11. I didn't really care for that one. I heard Sicko's pretty good, and I heard his new one is actually the best one, Where to Invade Next. Got it on my Hulu. I will check it out. Those are my honorable mentions, and my voice is shot. Brian, what are some other ones have you enjoyed in the documentary genre?
Yeah, this film is not yet rated as one. Bowling for Columbine is great in my opinion. Tupac Resurrection is really solid. There was another Tupac documentary. It was Begin Tupac, which I hear was good. I've seen some of it, so can't fully judge it. When I was a little boy, and I actually forgot this was an existent thing. When I was a little kid, I remember I went to go see March of the Penguins when I was a little kid, and I got scared, and then I wanted to kill myself because that documentary, when the penguins are eaten by the seals or wherever the fuck those creatures are, I wanted to cry. An Inconvenient Truth is really solid. That one's good.
Oh yeah, speaking of March of the Penguins, I do appreciate all the Disney nature documentaries I've seen. Those are always fun to watch.
Yes, those are very good as well. Citizen 4 was good. Searching for Sugar Man. It won the Oscar. The film, I didn't see it until I heard about the director, who is no longer with us. Rest in peace. It focuses on like two Cape Town fans who try to find out about the death of Sicto Rodriguez. And it was really interesting, definitely. 13th was great. Cartel Land was good. There's more. Okay, I don't know if this really counts as like a feature-length documentary, but the reason why I bring it up is because it comes from, an Oscar-winning filmmaker. Martin Scorsese directed a documentary called George Harrison Living in the Material World. It was about, George Harrison, one of the Beatles, and I never knew about this guy all that much, but I was really into it, and I'm not just saying that because it's Martin Scorsese. I'm actually saying that because it was a legit good documentary. It won a few Emmys, and it was just really, really awesome. So yeah, I don't really have many honorable mentions. I wish I did, but like I said, I don't really watch a lot of documentaries, and I think we should just push this out of the way. Chase, let's talk about the dishonorable mention. I want to hear you rant about this again because I love when you rant about this particular piece of film.
Okay, so for all of our beautiful listeners out there, if you are a Trump supporter, I'm sorry, but I'm about to spin some shit. All right, so I saw a movie last year called Hillary's America, The Secret History to the Democratic Party. First of all, that title is garbage, and it makes you want to throw up almost immediately. And second of all, it is one of the worst documentaries I've ever seen in my life. Probably the worst. I gave it an F-. I gave it a new grade because of how much dick it sucked. So, if you what's really funny is like when people assume that you're reviewing a movie that bashes Democrats, and you make fun of Republicans that you're a Democrat, which makes no sense, by the way. People were calling me a Hillary supporter in the comments and stuff. Go to my review. Like, some of those comments are heinous. I didn't even vote for her, you fucking jackholes. I fucking hated both of them. You know why this one sucks? Because the filmmaking sucks. Whatever the fucking dude's name is, he's made like 3 of these movies. They are so piss poor. They have the reenactment look of drunk history. And this guy is just like making a bullshit that just like, it sounds like it's like in a movie. It doesn't even sound like it's real life. And the fact that like it's called Hillary's America and he brings up Hillary for like 5 seconds at the end is like, what? What was your fucking point? And then he goes off on a 10-minute tangent of how Bill Clinton like raped a bunch of people, and like I wouldn't be surprised if he said left their dead bodies in a basement somewhere. Like, it just got so ridiculous, it was almost laughable. And all the reenactment scenes, the acting was atrocious. And they spent like the first like 45 minutes talking about slavery and how it was started by the Democratic Party. I'm not saying it wasn't. And these people in the fucking comment section were like, oh, you must like slavery because you like Democrats. But I was like, this movie sucks. And it's about a Democrat. And the slamming of a Democrat. You stupid fuck. And so, like, it spends the first 45 minutes on slavery. Like, Andrew Jackson, Democrat. He started slavery. Republicans are clean. It was hundreds of years ago, you fucking idiots. Like, we're talking about today and how it's shifted and how, yes, slavery might have been started by the Democrats, but now we have shifted to where, like, the Republican Party is a joke now. And, like, what the fuck? Like, these fucking these people, man. Some of these, like, hardcore, insane Trump supporters, and if you are listening right now and you're a Trump supporter, you're probably a lot smarter than the rest of them. But you know what? Most of them can't even think for themselves, and they just assume that, like, if you bash on this movie, then you hate Republicans, you hate Trump, which I do, but the movie itself is garbage on a filmmaking fucking level. It is a garbage film that literally ends with a bunch of fucking Republicans on stage singing the Star-Spangled Goddamn Banner as if they are saints and they did nothing wrong. This film paints Republicans as fucking angels. I do not mind political documentaries, but you have to show both sides. You can't just bash one side and say that you are perfect and you've done nothing wrong. What the fuck? It is a terrible documentary. Go to my review on my channel, and you will see all the stupid idiots out there. They're sheep. They're fucking sheep, Brian. They're just like, oh, I like my candidate. I believe everything he says. You know what? I will never question myself. I will never question anything. Hillary's emails, fake news, fuck yourself. Like, they don't look at anything. They're fucking sheep, Brian. Everyone in this country that followed Trump and they still have not turned around, they're fucking sheep, and I'm sorry if I pissed you off. Just don't be a sheep, guys. Don't be a fucking sheep. Think for yourselves and just watch this movie and be like, oh, that was terrible. You know what the sad part is? Some of my Republican friends on my Facebook page, they saw the movie like, yeah, Dad, that was pretty good. You know why? Because it catered to you. It catered to your ideology. You didn't fucking look at it from a film. You're just like, oh, Dad just supports everything I love. I don't want to question everything. It's like, no, don't do that. Don't be a fucking sheep, Brian. Just don't be sheep. That's all I fucking care about. Just think for yourself. We can have a debate. We can have a debate on certain issues. I realize that I'm not going to please everyone. I realize that people aren't going to please my views. But at least we can have open dialogue about it. Just don't be sheep. Just fucking think for yourself, you fucking a-holes. So, anyways, that's a pretty terrible documentary right there. But go to my review, like I said. The comment section is hilarious. All right, so, Brian, do you have one that just doesn't flow with you?
No, I really don't, in all honesty. I haven't seen any documentaries that I've loved watching. And, you know, I don't get why some people were fans of this one, the Hillary's America. I don't understand. See, I didn't see it, so I can't judge without watching some of it, but I just don't get it because I was watching clips from it, and I'm just like...
It's terrible. It looks like drunk history off of Comedy Central.
Yeah, and it's funny because it was nominated for a bunch of Razzies, and the person that played Hillary Clinton was nominated for a Razzie.
Good. Fucking good.
Yeah, that's it. I don't have anything else to say.
It got so absurd to a point where, like, Bill Clinton, when he left office, he stole a painting. As if he just stole it off the wall and walked out. And you know what the reenactment was? It was literally Bill Clinton just walking with a painting outside the White House. Who the fuck makes up this shit? Oh my God, Jesus Christ. And then people down below will be like, oh man, you must really love that Hillary Clinton. You must have voted for her. No, I did not. I did not vote for either one of them. I voted for my old grandpa Bernie because I felt like he was the most believable. I fucking hated both of our candidates. So it wasn't the fact that I liked Hillary. It was the fact that this movie was so fucking absurd. And the Republicans, some of them are just eating it up. As if it's just like the best thing ever. I don't understand it. Like, what the fuck, man? It's whatever. I don't want to talk about this movie ever again. Brian just loves it when I go off on a tangent and I'm going to pop a blood vessel. I'm probably going to die while we're recording, but whatever. Anyways, what about you guys? What are some of the ones that you dislike or like? Please comment down below. And did you appreciate that rant? Good. And did I piss you off? Good. I'm sorry. It's a terrible fucking movie. All right. So, Brian, what are we doing next week?
So next week, Detroit comes out into theaters. It follows the infamous riots from the 60s. So we're going to be talking about our favorite films based on true stories.
Ooh. See, that one's going to be tough, just like the documentaries, because that could literally mean anything. Now,
yes.
Is there any rules? Like, is it just loosely based, or does it have to be like full-on fact, or like what are we dealing with here?
Well, see... It could be mostly based, like, as long as it is considered a true story. Like, examples include, like, 12 Years a Slave, Schindler's List, The Wolf of Wall Street, Captain Phillips, American Hustle. As long as it's, like, those kinds of stories, like, obviously true stories. Even I'll say this right now, even The Conjuring counts. The Conjuring can count as well. And so yeah, just like those, like true stories, it could be dramas, it could be comedic stuff, as long as it's based on true stories. Like that's all that matters.
Okay, yeah, that basically means anything. So I mean, it'll be very fun to research and see which ones actually stick out. So that will be next week, guys. But before we end this episode and go to next week, Brian, where can the people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Film Junkie Brian and on YouTube at Brian Sutfield.
That's right, and you can find me on Twitter at Real Chase Lee. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get updates on when we do these things live. And ironically, Brian, for a genre that you don't really care about, we actually made this our longest fucking episode. So, but then again, my rant was like 15 minutes. So, but anyways, yeah. So all the links will be in the description below. Brian and I both have podcasts that premiere on Sundays, so check those out. And yeah, that will do it. So we will see you guys next week, guys, for top 5 movies based on real events. And this one was a lot of fun. I love documentaries, and hopefully you guys love them too. We'll see you guys next week. I'm Chase Lee.
And I'm Brian Sutfield.
That's fucking right. Bye-bye, everyone. Top 5 Saturdays Live, y'all.